Hello, hello. I am Ben Pick, and thank you for joining me in Writing to Write, where I used to give questionable writing advice through writing metaphors, but have since switched over to hosting these productivity sprints as I work towards finishing out my Into the Void series. That's a long way away, so sit tight. I am currently working through my fourth manuscript. I got the edits back from the copy editor, and I've gone through and made all of the changes based on that feedback. So now I'm going to do a complete read through of everything, and then I'm going to send it off to the next and final proofreader before hopefully hitting publish. That's the plan. I also need to get the cover art design, done. So I'm going to go through Meeple art. I'm probably going to send out all those details sometime this week to try and set up a plan, schedule, whatever. Got to make sure that they're a match for what I want with the cover. And let's see here. Hey, Richard, how's it going? Does the bed and thumbnail signify lots of sleep? In theory, that was the plan. Friday was a national holiday in the U.S., so in theory, I could have slept in a little bit. What actually happened was I stayed up late the night before playing video games with friends, and yeah. Again, I could have slept in on the Saturday, but I also stayed up a little bit late on that Friday night doing the same thing with the same group of friends. And then on Saturday, I did a game day at my aunt's house, at which point I drove home. It's about an hour and a half home from there. We left at about 10:30. Sped a little bit, so I got back about 1:45 and then I woke up for a brunch on Sunday. So in theory, I could have slept in. In actuality, I did not sleep in at all, although I did take a little bit of a nap on Sunday afternoon. So that's always nice. Let's see here. Hey, Richard, how's it going? Glad to see you are here. Yes, I am quite a big kid. Well, yeah, so on Friday, we want to take the dog to the park, which means that I was already up early, but Adriana had to wake up a little bit early to get ready so that we could take them there before it got way too hot out. Yes, Boone has not been fed. You can feed him in about 5 minutes. It's still a little bit early, and we got a storm going through, so he's probably a bit scared. So might take a bit more work than usual. Anyways, how is your week going, Richard and Addie? Let's see. So this past weekend was a fun game day with family, and last week, bit stressful with work. This week, sort of still stressful with work, but it's not. It's a weird kind of stressful because I have a lot that's due, but I have no control over getting things done. Is the nicest, easiest way I can put it. So, like today was a perfect example where I needed to log into an application, but I don't. The MFA token is not associated with the user I control, and so I asked the client to set up a meeting so that way I could work with the developer who has the access, and we can coordinate until late this afternoon, which means I basically lost a day of testing. Oh well, it happens. I did what I could throughout the day, but I'm going to have to push forward to make sure that that doesn't happen for the remainder of the testing period. So fun times. We're experiencing a heat wave. Ooh, I am sorry. I went outside for all of 5 minutes today, and it's so hot out, it just completely drained me. Hopefully the thunderstorm that rolled through or may continue to roll through throughout the rest of the night will cool things off. Yeah, went outside today. Do not recommend. Anyways, let's get started. So, like I said, I am continuing back with chapter 1. I'm going to do a full read through of my novel. I don't know how long that'll take, but ideally, Ideally, it won't be too long. However, I want to do this very methodically. I have a lot of points throughout the novel where I made like specific changes, and I want to make sure that one, the change makes sense in the context of what currently is happening, and that two, it makes sense with everything that before and everything after it. So there are a few pretty drastic changes, but I want to make sure that everything is normalized, is the best way I can put it. So, with that in mind, let's get started on tonight. Huh. Yeah. The good news is that this house is extremely air conditioned, so it is actually quite cold to just be wearing a t-shirt. However, the bad news is as soon as I step outside, it is rough. So today, instead of going for my run, I was just hanging out on the indoor bike. Oh, I actually finished off Paradise, which I have thoughts. I can go over that in the first break. Thoughts on Paradise and my thoughts on Spire Noir. Spoiler alert: they are not good. They are not good. They are not good. Anyways, let's get started on being productive. I will see you all on the other side of 30 minutes. And welcome back, everyone. I did not finish the first chapter, which is a bit disappointing, but I went through and made a couple of important changes based on some of the feedback from the copy editor. So there's a lot of narration, is the best way of putting it, at the start of chapter 1. And I added in a couple of dialogue points to move the scene along and make it more interesting. So I think those made the changes. Those changes are positive, although now the first chapter is over 4,000 words. But it took too long to edit, so I'm towards the end of the first chapter. I'll probably get that and maybe chapter 2 done before the end of the next sprint. Anyways, ST Houston, hey, thank you for joining in. Been a long time, and I hope you're doing well. You are drafting a novel and deep in the story, but sweet. Thank you for joining in and for hanging out. Andy, glad to see you. Glad to see you here. Swing by, say hi. You're not usually around this time. Yeah. It's pretty late for you, I'm guessing. So thank you for being here. And Richard is writing a brief for his cover designer for the post-apocalyptic story. That's long chapter 1. Yeah, I guess. I think my first couple of chapters were all kind of, the first chapter in each of these books is always kind of 3,000 to 4,000 words. So it's not too bad, especially since everything moves along pretty quickly. And your book lost about 8% of the word count over the copy edit, but that does not worry you. It's concentrating the ideas and making it more lean efficient. Good, good, good. That's what I like to hear. Yeah, so let's see here. Spire Noir is unrestrained Nick Cage, is the best way I can put it. It's not a Spider-Man story, and it's not a noir, because if you're not watching it in black and white, like, I wouldn't really be able to tell that's a noir, except for the fact there's constant irrelevant plot points, is the best way I can put it, that involve whatever it's called, the where booze was outlawed. So there's a lot of, there's a crime lord who's sneaking booze in the city and has the police, in his back pocket, and then there's some shifting between a corrupt mayor and him and power plays, but it's not a good prohibition. Thank you. Yes, that's the word I was looking for, Richard. I am in fact a writer. I do know my words. I am also very bad about remembering them in the moment. But yeah, so it's a terrible Spider-Man story. And it also has Nick Cage in every episode. We are finishing episode. We're in episode 8. We'll probably finish it tonight. But every episode he is unrestrained, is the best way I can put it. So it seems like they were so happy to get him. And I know that he was fantastic in Into the Spider-Verse as a voice actor. But there he was a single side character among an ensemble, and he really didn't. He was there, which was really cool, but he didn't really contribute to the overall story in a way that, or his contributions to the story were the same as every other Spider person involved in that story, with the exception of Miles Morales, who, and I guess one of the original Peter Parkers, because they were the main focus of the story. It was a passing the torch and a mentor story, wherein Miles Morales assumes the role of becoming Spider-Man, which is fantastic. The first movie is amazing. And a lot of my complaints about the second movie, about how people who are people like Peter Parker or other Spider-Men, Spider-Women, whatever, they act against their own interests. They act against their lore. They like everything. All those complaints are present in Spire Noir, where if you think about what's actually happening, the story just dissolves. And if you think about what's the plot, it falls apart. The quote unquote portrayals are easy to spot a mile away. The plot events, the surprises, everything, it's all just very easy to predict is the best way I can put it, and that leads to a very, very boring story. I think the biggest draw is for people who like Nick Cage to see him unrestrained is the best way I can put it. You have multiple scenes where he is acting like he is in fact a spider. You have multiple Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas scenes where he is, for one reason or another, either drugged up, drunk, beaten up to the point where it skews his vision, skews whatever. And so he's just kind of like stumbling through the hallway and is doing Nick Cage everywhere. But it's not like fun Nick Cage, like Con Air or Face Off is like the big one. But it's just Nick Cage being completely bonkers. So it's mildly entertaining. It is I mean, it's watchable. I said the same thing about Wonder Man. It's not a good story. It's not a good Marvel story, but it is what we have. So, stream and consume and all that other stuff. Well, yeah, I mean, of course, Nick Cage's character in the show is drunk near 24/7. And but yeah, I would argue that it's not really a noir. The biggest contributing factor to it being a noir is the fact that we're watching it in black and white, which is an option you can turn off and watch it in color anyway. So it's really funny. There was one point where he had his kidney was removed or something like that, and so his skin was yellow. But because we're watching in black and white, we actually couldn't see anything. And I mean, I kind of agree with you on your point, and that the main actor was amazing. The scenes he was given were not. But Sir Ben Kingsley and so many of the supporting actors were not in Wonder Man. And yes, I am very biased against Sir Ben Kingsley. I think he has a similar problem to Nick Cage, where it is blatantly obvious that he is an actor and he is not acting, if that makes any sense. Yeah, I mean, I feel that way about the main actor. I do feel like Ben Kingsley just detracts from whatever scene he's in. Because again, you have like people who are just naturally, they feel natural. They feel like they're actual people. And then you have him who is blatantly an actor. And yes, I know it's contradictory because in Wonder Man, they're all actors. That's the plot is Wonder Man is an actor who has a power and he's trying to get hired. So obviously everyone is actors who are acting as actors. So it's very meta. And there are a whole lot of problems with that in the show too. Because it's like, I get that there's the whole meta thing and there's the whole subverting expectations, but I don't know. When there is no real story aside from subverting expectations, it's just disappointing. That's my complaint about Tom Hanks. Everyone says you're crazy. About how he's acting like an actor? No, I think Tom Hanks is fantastic in Big and in Forrest Gump is another big one. So Big, Forrest Gump, and Terminal Man, I think he was pretty good in. Like, he's good in a lot of things. And yes, there are other moments where he's blatantly just like an actor acting, where he's phoning it in and whatnot. But I think overall, he's got some really high highs. Well, okay. That's the bigger problem, is that now sure, him and tons of other actors have definitely peaked and they are now phoning it in. Ben Kingsley, I haven't liked since House of Sand and Fog. And yes, I absolutely hate that movie. I can't remember anything about it. Just the fact that I maybe watched it for like 5-10 minutes, did not enjoy any of it, and then turned it off because Ben Kingsley was just terrible. Or I think I watched it thinking it was something else. Maybe I did watch the whole thing. I don't know. It's all kind of a blur whatever. It's been 15, 20 years since I actually watched it, I'm sure. So, yeah. But yeah, there are... it's like Dame Judi Dench in Artemis Finch, where, can't believe we got this incredibly talented actress here, but they don't use her. They don't use her for her acting talents. She's just a big name that's there, and she goes through and like bones everything in. Of course, the other problem with that is everything is green screen, so it's extremely difficult to act to it, anyways. Well, I mean, Cat has his own issue too, so there's that. And let's see. You know what? I have gone way over on time, so I'm probably just going to do another 30-minute sprint, and then I'll probably call it from there. So, yes, kind of. I think she definitely peaked when she was Q in 007, whichever, take your pick. I think after that, she has been phoning in, and that's perfectly fine. I mean, if I were an actor or actress of her caliber, and I were hired to do Artemis Finch, I would definitely phone that in. No, Maggie Smith wasn't the same. She is ridiculously, well, she was ridiculously talented, but she never phoned in as far as I am aware. That being said, I never watched Downton Abbey, but in Harry Potter, she was always top of her game. She was always doing like little... She John Hurt the scenario, is what I'm trying to say, where like with just really subtle emotions, she conveyed so much. What was it? There's the 5th movie where Harry gets in trouble, and I thought Maggie Smith passed on. Oh, yeah. Well, that's the point. If somebody's 91, like, at what point are you just taking the check and calling it a day and saying your lines to the screen and enjoying what you're going to give to your kids, I guess, is the best way of putting it. Yes, unfortunately, yeah, I was pretty certain about that one. But yeah, like, sure, if I were 91 and all I had to do was show up for 3 days, sit in a green screen, and just read lines as deadpan as I can, and it's basically deadpan, whatever. I'm sure I would probably sell out and do the same thing too. But I don't know. I feel like once you've reached a certain point, I don't know. It's always very difficult to know what a movie will turn out to be based on the script. I mean, there's the famous Sean Connery, how Sean Connery was going to be Gandalf, but he didn't understand Lord of the Rings. He didn't understand what he was doing. And so he gave up. He passed on being Gandalf in Lord of the Rings. And that's how he ended up doing League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, because, again, he's like, I don't understand the story. I don't understand the plot. I don't understand the script. But I passed up on Lord of the Rings, so maybe this is another hit, and I'm just not getting it. Sure. If I were in their situation, I think I would handle things differently. I do think there are some... I think there are some opportunities I would absolutely have passed up. Like, I absolutely adore Star Wars. I'm definitely cutting that off almost entirely. But I was like a thorough Star Wars fan for all the 90s, the early 2000s. I was a fan despite the prequels. I was bored with the Clone Wars. I would pick it up. I was an off and on Star Wars fan after the prequels, is the best way I can describe it. But my point being that if anybody ever asked me to do anything with Star Wars, I know my own capabilities. So whether it's acting, whether it's writing, whatever, I would walk away. As much as I would want to be a part of that universe and contribute to it, you know, I know that. Well, first of all, I know that under Disney, that is just the Titanic. Disney buying Star Wars was the Titanic hitting the iceberg, and everything after that is just a sinking ship. So there's that. Um, Mainly because they made the terrible decision of recognizing that they couldn't. Well, I mean, it was a calculated decision, but they recognized that they couldn't do justice to the existing universe and all of the lore and all of the complications and the fantastic stories that are there. So they just decided to wipe the slate clean, and they have yet to even come close to like some of the worst of the EU. Like the worst of the EU, the Legacy series now is still vastly superior to everything that Disney has put out. And yes, I'm including Rebels in there. I'm including, even though I think Rebels was technically before the deal. Whatever. That's my Star Wars rant. But yeah, I would never do what Jack Black did, or what's his name, Bill Burr, and a whole bunch of other people, where it's, hey, I'm this famous person and I want to be in a Star Wars, so I'm going to be in a Star Wars. I'm going to use my clout to be in a Star Wars. And everything about that scene was just out of place. Like I understand the allure of being in something like Star Wars, but to have Jack Black in Star Wars, it just destroys 100% of the illusion. Because, in everything Jack Black is in, he's always Jack Black. And even if he were acting as somebody who isn't Jack Black, like what's his name? Bill Barr? Whoever was in The Mandalorian, like it's the exact same thing. He takes off his helmet and, hey, it's that comedian guy, and there goes the Star Wars immersion of that entire episode. They're like, oh, I'm just watching actors. I would say arguably Pedro Pascal suffers from the same issue. Sure. Anyways, that's the end of my rant. I'm going to do a 30-minute sprint, and I will see you all on the other side of it. Moral of the story, don't watch Paradise. Watch Spider-Man Noir at your own risk if you liked Wicker Man or whatever, because Nick Cage is going Nick Cage. And yeah. I am out there looking for new good shows to watch, because what I'm finding is very disappointing. Okay, that's not true. Pedro was in he was in Game of Thrones, and he was in like a couple of big things. So, and yes, now once he was Mando, now he's in everything, and now he's in not First Class, First Family, Fantastic Four. I mean, yes, but he was also like yes, he was a bit part in Game of Thrones, but he was also an extremely famous bit part in Game of Thrones because he was pivotal to the story. Like, and the memes that were going out about I have an avalanche. It's like I need to take Tylenol because like I have a mountain crushing my head. There were he was pretty. He was more recognizable than I'm giving credit for, especially. I feel like this might be 2020 hindsight, where Game of Thrones has completely fallen off the radar, and everything that was associated with it was just collectively forgotten because of how bad it ended. Anyways, I'm going to go on mute, and I'm going to start being productive. And thank you, everybody, for joining me tonight. That's the end of my second sprint. I know I usually do 3, but I got started off on a rant, and so I only did 30 minutes. I made good progress. Before dinner gets underway, I'm going to finish up with chapter 3. I'm like right at the end, so I want to just sort of finish that. I edited chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3. I added in a few details in chapter 1. I touched some things up, and I have a note to add in some very specific details to sort of tie threads together between the books. It's completely irrelevant. It's going to be a blink and you miss it moment, but the character's car has definitely evolved over the series, and I want to acknowledge that fact by showing a detail which will never come into play again through the rest of the book. But that is where I'm working on, and like I said, I'm going to close out here. I'm going to finish up chapter 3, and then I'm going to go have some dinner. So thank you, everybody, for joining me tonight. Miss Blogger, hey, welcome, welcome, welcome. You're working on your outline for your fiction, fantasy, and contemporary paranormal romance novel with instant love, forced proximity, and fated mate tropes. Awesome. I am working on a full pass-through of my 4th manuscript. After I finish the updates based on the copy editor, I'm going to do some more high-level work this weekend, but I'm trying to go chapter by chapter and get everything, make sure everything is flowing as I want to, make sure everything's connected, make sure I didn't introduce any problems by making all the changes, and just get started. Awesome. Richard, hey, thank you for letting me know. I am up to 400 subscribers officially, so hopefully all of you stay subscribed and don't quit out. But that is a huge accomplishment. I wasn't expecting it. Wow, that is really awesome. That's the best way I could put it. So I will see you all next week. Monday night, I will try to do less rants, fewer rants, and try and do my full 30, 20, 20, 3 productive sprints. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, everybody, for joining in tonight, and I will see you next week. Take care and have fun this week. I know there's a storm going around. I've heard there are tornado warnings all up and down the northeastern corridor. So see y'all and stay safe. Bye.